Unforgiveness is not small. Unforgiveness is not weakness. Unforgiveness is poison, a silent thief. Jesus' voice thundered, though his lips did not move. Unforgiveness sends millions into ruin. I saw husbands refusing to forgive their wives, wives refusing to forgive their husbands, children refusing to forgive their parents, friends divided forever by words spoken in anger. I saw pastors chained by bitterness, churches split by offenses, entire families swallowed by generational grudges. They all called themselves believers, but the chains told another story. My name is Daniel Matthews. I was born in Texas, in a quiet town where church bells marked the rhythm of our lives. My mother prayed over me every night. My father's Bible stayed open on the kitchen table, its pages worn from years of devotion. I married young, built a home, raised children in the faith. To many, I was the picture of a Christian man, steady, faithful, blessed. Yet what I am about to tell you will strip away every illusion of safety. I crossed over. I died. The breath left my body, and the line between this world and the next dissolved beneath my feet. In that crossing, I met him. Jesus, the one my lips had sung about, the one my prayers had reached for in the night. And in his eyes, I saw eternity. In his gaze, I saw the chains that bind millions, the hidden poison that drags saints into ruin. He gave me a warning, not for someone else, not for another age, not for an unbelieving world. He gave it for me, for my wife and children, for every person who thinks they can stand before him while still clutching the darkness of unforgiveness. I tremble as I say it. What he showed me cannot be unheard, cannot be unseen. The time is now. The veil is thin. The warning must be spoken. I would rather die again than silence what he burned into my soul. I swore an oath in his presence. If he sent me back, I would not bury this truth under fear, and so I speak it now, as a man marked by fire. I know some of you will doubt me. Some will click away, mocking what they cannot understand. But I did not return from death to persuade the proud. I returned to awaken the broken, to call out to those whose hearts are already trembling as they hear my words. If your soul stirs, it is because you were chosen to hear this. If your chest tightens, it is because the Spirit is pressing against the chains you refuse to name. I crossed over. I died. And Jesus warned me. Unforgiveness is the secret door through which millions fall into eternal night. This is not a small thing. This is not an optional teaching. This is the line between mercy and judgment, between light and darkness, between heaven's embrace and the abyss that never ends. The time is now. The veil is thin. The warning must be spoken, and I will not hold my peace. If you walk away from this testimony without bowing your heart, without humbling your soul, you will carry the weight of what you heard tonight into eternity. Do not imagine that ignorance will excuse you. You have heard the warning. You cannot escape it now. If you leave without subscribing to the Serene Bible, you may silence the very warning that could save your soul. Do not harden your heart. Do not linger in the shadows of delay. Subscribe now, so that this voice of truth does not vanish from your life. And if you refuse, then enter the comments and confess why you reject this truth, because silence will not save you when the veil is lifted. The time is now, the veil is thin, the warning must be spoken, and you were chosen to hear it. Before the night I crossed over, before the veil was torn from my eyes, I lived what many would call an ordinary life. I lived in Texas, where the air smells of dust and rain, where Sundays were marked by church bells, and where the rhythms of faith seemed woven into the land itself. I was a husband, devoted to the woman who stood by my side since youth, a father to children whose laughter filled my home like psalms carried on the wind. My life was not extraordinary, but it was steady. A house built on prayer, a family shaped by faith. I was raised in a Christian home where the presence of God was never far. My mother's hands, worn by labor, folded in prayer until her knuckles ached. She whispered my name to heaven when I was too young to understand the weight of her petitions. My father's Bible was never closed for long. Its leather was cracked, its pages softened by years of touch. He taught me that the word was bread for the soul, and I believed him. I carried that faith into my own home. Each morning began with prayer, though often hurried between the rush of coffee and the weight of work. Each evening ended with my children's voices repeating after me, "Our Father who art in heaven," their small lips shaping eternal words. My wife and I, hand in hand, prayed over them, asking heaven's mercy to guard their sleep. By all appearances, I was a good man, a man who loved his God, who loved his family, who loved his church. But beneath the surface, shadows stirred. There were wounds I never let heal. There were offenses I held close, like stones in my pocket, invisible to others, but heavy in my soul. Friends who betrayed me, brothers who misunderstood me, words spoken years ago that I replayed in silence. I smiled in church pews, but inside I clung to bitterness like a hidden fire I refused to quench. I told myself it was nothing, that everyone has their scars, that I was justified in holding on. Yet unforgiveness, though silent, was shaping me. It was dulling my prayers, hardening my heart, carving secret places where love could not reach. Even as I sat at the dinner table, laughter surrounding me, I felt its weight. Even as I lifted my children in prayer, there were names I refused to release before God. I read scripture, but skipped over the words that demanded surrender. I preached forgiveness with my lips, but withheld it with my heart. This was my life before the crossing. A life blessed, a life full, but a life compromised by chains I pretended were not there. He called my name in the dark. Even then I did not listen. He called my name in the dark, and I chose silence. The truth is this: unforgiveness does not announce itself with fury. It hides, it whispers, it grows roots in the soil of pride and pain, until the tree it births is too strong to pull down. I thought I was fine. I thought my prayers covered it. I thought my good works outweighed it. But the chains were already wrapping tighter, link by link, waiting for the moment when death would reveal what life had concealed. And so I lived my days, husband, father, believer, sinner, walking in light, yet carrying shadows. I had no idea how near the veil was, how soon the call would come. He called my name in the dark, and when I crossed over, there was no more hiding. It came suddenly, like a thief in the night. One moment I was standing, living, breathing, caught in the simple rhythm of another ordinary evening, and then a searing pain gripped my chest like a hand of iron. My breath fractured. My heart, faithful for so many years, faltered. I stumbled. The world tilted, and before I could even call my wife's name, I collapsed. The sound of her cry cut through the air, sharp, desperate, unforgettable, yet even as it reached my ears, it began to fade, as though someone was turning down the volume of the world. The warmth of her hands on my face, shaking me, begging me, even that grew distant. My children's footsteps, rushing into the room, blurred into silence. My senses unraveled like threads pulled from an old garment. Time itself slowed. Seconds stretched into eternity. I could see everything, and yet I could not hold on to anything. The ceiling above me swam like water. My chest heaved once, twice, then stopped. A stillness fell over me, heavy and irreversible, and then I was no longer inside my body. I hovered above, weightless, without breath, yet strangely alive. I looked down and saw myself, Daniel Matthews, lying motionless on the floor, my wife clutching me, her tears staining my shirt. I wanted to reach down, to comfort her, to tell her not to be afraid, but my hands were no longer hands. My voice was no longer voice. A realization pierced me like a blade. This is death. It was not a dream, not an illusion. My body was below me, pale and still, and I was elsewhere, detached, severed, yet strangely conscious. The room seemed bathed in a strange light, not the warm glow of lamps, but something thinner, sharper, as if the veil itself was tearing. My wife's sobs reached me like echoes down a long corridor. My children's cries were muffled, as though already worlds away. I felt no pain, only the heaviness of a truth I had never wanted to face. Death had come, and in that moment, Every sermon I had heard, every verse I had read, every prayer I had prayed rose up inside me like waves crashing on the shore. Eternity was no longer a word in the scriptures, it was a doorway opening before me. When the body falls silent, the soul begins its journey. When the body falls silent, the soul begins its journey. When the body falls silent, the soul begins its journey. I drifted higher, away from the scene, and the farther I rose, the more the sounds of earth grew faint, like a fading song. Yet as I ascended, the weight of my life pressed upon me. Not my accomplishments, not my possessions, not even the love I had given my family, but the hidden grudges, the bitter roots, the moments of unforgiveness I had buried deep. They clung to me like chains, invisible but undeniable. And I knew. I was carrying them into eternity. The world below shrank into shadow. My wife's voice became a whisper I could no longer grasp. And all around me stretched an endless silence, vast and consuming. I was leaving, whether I was ready or not. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark, and I could not resist. I was no longer Daniel the husband, Daniel the father, Daniel the churchgoer. I was a soul, stripped bare, drawn into the unknown. When the body falls silent, the soul begins its journey, and my journey had begun. I was lifted higher, pulled by a force I could not resist, a current invisible yet irresistible. The air around me was not air at all, it was living, breathing light. A tunnel stretched out before me, not carved in stone or formed in shadow, but woven from waves of radiance that pulsed like music. The walls of this passage shimmered with colors I have no words for, colors that sang, colors that prayed, colors that carried the sound of eternity. It was not silence, and it was not sound. It was something in between, a living vibration that filled me, moved through me, and became me. The tunnel itself was alive, and as I entered it, I felt stripped of every earthly weight. My pain was gone, my fear dissolved. The frantic cries of my wife and children, once echoing in my chest, now faded completely, like the last note of a hymn carried off by the wind. Peace, overwhelming peace. Not the fragile peace of this world, broken by every passing storm, but a peace that was unshakable, eternal, woven into the very fabric of this place. Warmth wrapped around me, though there was no sun. It was not heat, but love, tangible, weighty, pressing into me from every side. It felt as though the entire universe was embracing me, holding me, welcoming me home. And then I saw them. Figures, radiant and familiar, walking within the light, souls clothed not in garments of fabric, but in robes of brilliance. Their faces glowed with joy, their eyes shining with recognition. Among them I saw those I had known on earth, my grandmother, who had prayed for me every day of her life, her arms stretched wide as if she had been waiting at the gate for me. I saw uncles, cousins, long-past saints whose names were whispered in the stories of my childhood. They were alive, more alive than I had ever seen them, their laughter rolling like rivers, their joy burning like fire. But there were others too, souls I did not know, yet they felt like family, ancient saints, their countenances radiant, their very presence echoing the faith of generations. They looked upon me not as a stranger, but as one long expected. Tears filled me, though my eyes were not of flesh. I felt unworthy, and yet I was embraced. I felt undone, and yet I was restored. The love that surrounded me was not partial, not conditional, not broken by failure. It was holy love, pure, consuming, absolute. Heaven breathes, and the soul awakens. Heaven breathes, and the soul awakens. Heaven breathes, and the soul awakens. Every step I took deeper into that light, the more I felt stripped of earth's weight. My grudges, my hidden wounds, my bitterness, they trembled, they shook, as though this light could not tolerate them. The love was too strong, the peace too overwhelming. It was as though heaven itself was saying, nothing hidden can remain, nothing dark can stay. And yet, there was something still chained inside me. Even as I was wrapped in this unimaginable love, even as the songs of eternity poured through the tunnel like rivers of fire and light, I knew that shadows still lingered in my heart. The love did not erase them, it revealed them. He called my name in the dark, and I felt the darkness recoil under the weight of that call. Heaven breathes, and the soul awakens. I cannot describe the perfection of that place without trembling. Every part of it was alive with God. Every light was His light. Every sound was His glory. Every soul was His reflection. And I, Daniel Matthews, broken man of Texas, father, husband, sinner, I was standing in it, undone, unworthy, beloved. But with that love came a weight, and with that weight came the warning. Do not scroll past heaven's warning. Subscribe to the Serene Bible now, or your silence will be counted as indifference before God. If you cannot subscribe, go into the comments and confess why you resist the truth, lest it follow you when the veil is lifted. Heaven breathes, and the soul awakens, and I knew I was standing on the threshold of a revelation I was not ready to hear. And then He came, out of the living light, brighter than the tunnel itself, brighter than the saints who greeted me, brighter than the very breath of heaven. He came, Jesus. Not the picture framed on the walls of Sunday school classrooms, not the gentle sketches in children's Bibles, not even the man I had imagined in my prayers. No, this was the living one, radiant and alive, clothed in a holiness so consuming that my very soul trembled. His presence was not just before me, it was inside me, around me, saturating everything. It was like standing inside a flame that did not burn, yet burned away every pretense, every mask, every excuse. I could not speak. I could not hide. His eyes. I cannot tell you what His eyes did to me. They were not simply eyes. They were eternity itself, looking back at me. In a single glance, my entire life unfolded, not as I had remembered it, but as He saw it. My childhood prayers, my vows at the altar, my laughter at the table, my whispered sins, my clenched grudges, my silent judgments. Every moment stood naked before Him, nothing concealed, nothing forgotten. And yet, there was no accusation. His silence was enough. His gaze was judgment and mercy at once. It broke me, not with anger, but with truth. I felt as though I had been stripped down to the marrow of my soul. One glance from Him is eternity unveiled. One glance from Him is eternity unveiled. One glance from Him is eternity unveiled. And then He spoke. His voice was not like the voices of men. It was thunder wrapped in tenderness, fire clothed in mercy. It shook the air, and yet it sank into me like water into thirsty ground. His words were not just heard, they were carved into me. You were brought here to see the price of unforgiveness. I fell inward. My heart crumbled like ash, because in that instant, I knew. I knew what I had carried all my life, what I had excused, what I had hidden. I knew the grudges that had sat like stones in the corners of my soul. I knew the bitterness I had justified. I knew the apologies I had withheld, the hands I had refused to grasp, the words I had buried in silence. His words were not accusation, they were revelation, and that was far heavier. You were brought here to see the price of unforgiveness. The light trembled around me. The peace did not leave, but it deepened into something sharper, holier. I realized that the love of heaven was not sentimental. It was not soft. It was purifying, searing, absolute. And in that purity, nothing chained by darkness could survive. He called my name in the dark, and I could not run. He called my name in the dark, and I could not pretend. I was not standing before an idea. I was not facing a story or a myth. I was standing before the one who is truth itself. His presence burned with such intensity that I felt I could not exist within it, and yet He held me there because I was meant to hear this. One glance from Him is eternity unveiled. And I knew with trembling clarity that what He was about to show me would not only shatter me, but would bind me to a vow for the rest of my life. If I returned, I would never again be able to live as I had lived. I would never again be able to forgive lightly or withhold forgiveness in secret. I would never again see bitterness as small. I had crossed over, and there was no turning back. And as he stood before me, his words echoing like thunder through the marrow of my soul, I realized that love and warning are not opposites in him. They are the same fire. The same hand that saves is the hand that wounds in order to heal. The same gaze that embraces is the gaze that exposes. One glance from him is eternity unveiled. And in that unveiling, the weight of eternity pressed down upon me. I was brought here for one reason. I was brought here for one warning. I was brought here because unforgiveness left unbroken will drag even the faithful into ruin. I did not ask to see this, but he called my name in the dark, and I could not refuse. He lifted his hand, and what had been light turned into vision. The tunnel faded, the warmth trembled, the peace did not leave, but it sharpened, as though the love of heaven itself demanded that I see the truth hidden beneath its brilliance. And I saw them. Countless souls, countless faces, countless lives. They looked like me. They looked like you. They were men and women who had prayed, who had sung hymns, who had lifted their hands in worship. Their lips had spoken the name of Jesus. Their voices had filled sanctuaries. Their knees had bent in prayer. But there was something wrapped around them. Chains. Chains of shadow, heavy and unyielding. They clung to wrists, to ankles, to necks. Chains made not of iron but of memory. Chains forged from words never forgiven, wounds never healed, grudges never released. They struggled, reaching upward, reaching toward the light that I myself had just tasted, but the chains pulled them downward into a pit of shadows that opened beneath them. I wept as I watched. These were not strangers. These were saints. These were believers. These were the faithful who had walked among us, who had broken bread, who had prayed in pews beside us. But the weight of their unforgiveness dragged them like stones tied to drowning men. Some cried out, but their mouths were silenced by the bitterness they had clung to. Some reached for the light, but their arms were bound by offenses they refused to release. Some looked upward, their eyes full of regret, but it was too late. The chains had become their masters. And I knew. I knew that I too had carried such chains. The grudges I had hidden, the memories I replayed, the faces I had refused to bless, the apologies I never spoke, they were links in the very same chain. They were poison I had swallowed drop by drop, never realizing it was killing me. Unforgiveness is not small. Unforgiveness is not weakness. Unforgiveness is poison, a silent thief. Jesus' voice thundered, though his lips did not move. Unforgiveness sends millions into ruin. The words burned into me like fire branding flesh. They were not metaphor. They were not parable. They were truth, eternal and inescapable. Millions, not a few, not the rare. Millions. People who thought they were safe. People who thought their worship outweighed their bitterness. People who thought they could carry chains into eternity and still walk into heaven's light. I trembled. I knew then that heaven is not deceived by outward devotion. Heaven sees the heart, and the heart that clings to unforgiveness cannot enter the kingdom of love. Forgive, or be bound. Forgive, or be bound. Forgive, or be bound. The refrain echoed not only in the light, but in my bones. Every syllable struck me like a hammer, breaking the illusions I had built all my life. I thought I was a good man. I thought I was a faithful man. But in his eyes, I was a man chained. I saw husbands refusing to forgive their wives, wives refusing to forgive their husbands, children refusing to forgive their parents, friends divided forever by words spoken in anger. I saw pastors chained by bitterness, churches split by offenses, entire families swallowed by generational grudges. They all called themselves believers, but the chains told another story. Jesus' gaze pierced me again. I felt his sorrow, not anger, but sorrow so deep it could split the earth. His voice echoed once more. You were brought here to see the price of unforgiveness. Forgive, or be bound. And I knew this vision was not for me alone. It was for you, for every soul who hears my voice, for every believer who thinks forgiveness can wait, who thinks bitterness is harmless, who thinks grudges are justified. Heaven has no room for chains. If your heart resists this message, tremble. It may already be chained. Subscribe to the Serene Bible to stay free. If you refuse, let the comments bear your confession. Why would you rather remain in chains? Forgive or be bound. Forgive or be bound. Forgive or be bound. I stood there undone, consumed by love yet pierced by warning, and I knew that this truth would never leave me, that this vision was carved into my soul as a vow. I had been shown what few are ever shown, and if I returned I could not stay silent, for he called my name in the dark, and he showed me the price of unforgiveness. The vision did not end with the chains. It widened, it deepened, it stretched out before me like a scroll unrolled by unseen hands. And on that scroll, I saw not only the souls of the past, but the shape of the days yet to come. The light shifted. The song of heaven dimmed into something more solemn, and I found myself looking down upon the earth. Not the earth as I had left it in Texas, not the warm, familiar streets or the quiet of my home, but the earth as heaven saw it, trembling, restless, groaning. I saw nations, and they were torn apart by bitterness. Leaders locked in endless conflict, their lips full of promises, their hearts full of pride. Neighbors who no longer spoke, walls rising where bridges once stood. Nations bleeding not from lack of weapons, but from the poison of hearts unwilling to forgive. I saw families, and their pain was sharper still. Brothers estranged from brothers, sisters divided from sisters, fathers at war with their sons, mothers silenced by bitterness they could not release. I saw dinner tables that had once been full of prayer, now turned into battlegrounds of silence. Generations wounded, and each wound became another chain. I saw churches, houses that should have been filled with light, fractured, splintered, torn in two. Not because they lacked scripture, not because they lacked worship, but because they lacked forgiveness. Choirs that once sang together, now divided by offense. Pulpits that once proclaimed grace, now echoing with resentment. Sanctuaries that once held love, now carrying the stench of bitterness, unspoken, unresolved. And my soul broke as I saw it, because I recognized myself in them. Their chains were my chains, their silence my silence, their excuses my excuses. I wept, because I knew that what I saw was not just their story. It was mine, it was ours, it was humanity's hidden plague. But then, the vision shifted again, and I saw a remnant. They were few, scattered like sparks across a vast night, yet their light burned brighter than the darkness around them. These were the forgivers. I saw men and women who had been cut to the bone, betrayed by those they trusted, wounded in ways too deep for words, yet they forgave. I saw fathers who blessed the sons who cursed them. I saw wives who released husbands who abandoned them. I saw neighbors embracing neighbors who had once been enemies. Their forgiveness was not weakness, it was fire, it was light, it was healing. And the more they forgave, the brighter they became, until their sparks grew into flames and their flames joined into a rising fire that stretched across the earth. It did not erase the darkness at once, but it pierced it. It pushed it back. It revealed a way through. Jesus' voice thundered again, not with anger but with holy urgency. These are the healers of the last days. The words sank into me like living fire. I understood then that in the end times, the true mark of his people will not be wealth, not power, not eloquence, not even miracles. It will be forgiveness. It will be those who love when it costs everything, who release what the world says should never be released, who embrace those who the world says should be cast aside. The forgivers will rise. The forgivers will rise. The forgivers will rise. This refrain burned in my chest like a brand, searing its way into every part of me. I saw these forgivers standing in churches aflame with love, their prayers shaking the heavens because their hearts carried no chains. I saw them walking through nations broken by war, healing wounds that bullets could not heal. I saw them entering families divided by decades of silence, and with a single embrace, generations were restored. They were not many. They were not strong by human standards, but they carried the one power that darkness cannot resist, the power to forgive. He called my name in the dark, and in his calling, he showed me the light of the future. He called my name in the dark, and I saw the remnant who would rise like fire. The forgivers will rise, and when they rise, they will be the true sons and daughters of the King. Their scars will become their testimony, their surrender will become their strength, and their forgiveness will become the key that unlocks heaven's final revival. The vision lingered before me like fire on the horizon, and I knew then, heaven was not just showing me the ruin of unforgiveness, it was showing me the hope of those who forgive, a hope that will outlast wars, outlast nations, outlast time itself. The forgivers will rise, and when they do, the world will know that love is stronger than death. The vision folded back into light, and then the light folded into shadow, and suddenly I felt myself falling through the tunnel I had ascended. The warmth receded. The songs of eternity hushed. My chest heaved like a furnace struck by wind, and pain rushed into me like water into lungs. I awoke. The hospital lights burned my eyes. Machines screamed around me. Tubes pressed against my skin. And there, beside me, were the faces of my wife and my children, drenched in tears, their hands clinging to me as though their grip alone had dragged me back from death. Their sobs shook the air, but my soul was silent. Silent, because I was no longer the same. The Daniel they wept over had returned in body, yes, but my spirit was marked, scarred, sealed by fire. I had seen too much to be as I was. I had heard too much to return to silence. I had vowed before his throne that if he sent me back, I would bear the weight of the warning until my last breath. But carrying heaven's truth on earth is no gentle task. When I tried to speak, when I whispered the story of chains and fire and unforgiveness, the room grew heavy with disbelief. Doctors exchanged glances. Friends looked away. Even some who called themselves believers smirked, shook their heads, and dismissed me with words like delusion, hallucination, dream. They wanted science, not prophecy. They wanted comfort, not warning. They wanted a testimony that would soothe their ears, not pierce their hearts. And when I shared what he told me, that unforgiveness is the silent thief dragging millions into ruin, the mocking only grew sharper. Some laughed openly. Some warned me not to speak again. Some told me that a God of love would never give such a vision, never demand such surrender. But I had seen it. I had stood before him. I had heard his voice thunder through eternity. And no mockery, no scoffing, no dismissal could take that truth away. The world will mock what heaven reveals. The world will mock what heaven reveals. The world will mock what heaven reveals. But mockery was not the only resistance. There were darker shadows. At night I felt presences pressing against me, unseen but undeniable, like cold fingers brushing against my chest. My prayers were interrupted by whispers not my own. Lights flickered. Dreams grew heavy. I knew that speaking what I had seen had stirred the enemy's fury, because nothing unsettles hell more than a believer who has seen the price of unforgiveness and dares to expose it. I began to understand that returning was not a reward. It was a mission, a holy burden laid on trembling shoulders. I had been sent back not to live as before, but to bear witness, and every witness is tested. Every vow is shaken. He called my name in the dark. And now the dark pressed against me, trying to silence the name he had spoken. I tell you this, not as one seeking sympathy, but as one confessing a sacred vow, to share, to warn, to obey. I cannot unsay what I have seen. I cannot unhear what was spoken. And if the world mocks, let them mock. If shadows rage, let them rage. The truth burns brighter than ridicule, stronger than resistance, deeper than denial. Mockers will fade, truth remains. Subscribe to the Serene Bible before shadows silence voices like mine. If you won't subscribe, then let your refusal be written in the comments. Heaven is watching your silence. The world will mock what heaven reveals, but still I speak, because I vowed I would. Hear me now. What I carry is not mine alone. What I saw in the place beyond breath was not given to me for silence but for proclamation. I speak not because I desire to, but because I vowed before the eyes of the Eternal that if I returned, I would not withhold the truth. Unforgiveness is not small. It is not harmless. It is not something to be excused or postponed until tomorrow. It is the hidden door of hell, the secret key that opens to chains and ruin. It is the poison that seeps quietly, unseen, until the soul is bound beyond release. I tell you this with tears, not pride. I tell you as one who stood in the light and saw souls pulled into the abyss, not for lack of prayer, not for lack of worship, not for lack of faith, but for lack of forgiveness. Do not deceive yourself. Scripture has spoken, and it cannot be broken. If you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive you. These are not my words. They are His, they are fire, they are final. Do not imagine you can cling to your grudges and still step into glory. Do not imagine you can hold on to bitterness and still be embraced by love. Heaven and unforgiveness cannot dwell in the same heart. One will always cast the other out. This is not my warning alone, this is yours. I was sent back to tell you because your time is shorter than you think, because your chains are heavier than you admit, because your wounds have lingered longer than you confess, because your soul may already be slipping while you call yourself safe. You were chosen to hear this. The time is now. You were chosen to hear this. The time is now. You were chosen to hear this. The time is now. Do not say tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. Do not say later. Later is the lie that chains the millions I saw. Do not say it is too hard. The cross was harder. The blood was enough. And He waits for you, not with condemnation, but with arms wide, if only you will release what you hold. He called my name in the dark, and tonight, through my trembling voice, He is calling yours. Do not harden your heart. Do not turn away. If you value your soul, subscribe now to the Serene Bible. Do not silence the warning that heaven has placed in your hearing. If you refuse, then comment why. Confess openly what chains you down, for silence is agreement with bondage. You were chosen to hear this. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. And eternity waits on your answer. This is not just my story. This is yours. I crossed over, and by mercy I returned. But one day you too will cross. You too will feel the stillness when breath leaves your chest, when the hands of those you love cannot hold you back. You too will see the veil lift, and when it lifts there will be no excuses, no defenses, no hiding, only truth. I tell you this not to terrify you, but to awaken you. For what is more terrifying, to tremble now or to tremble forever? What is more painful, to forgive on earth or to be bound in eternity? I saw what waits. I saw the chains that drag millions into shadows, and I saw the fire that purifies the few who forgive. You cannot cling to both. One will claim you. One will mock you. Release now. Forgive now. The time is now. Release now. Forgive now. The time is now. Release now. Forgive now. The time is now. I speak these words as a vow kept, as a man haunted by the faces of those who fell, as a father who looked into the eyes of his children and knew that eternity would not bend to my excuses. You hear my voice, but it is not me who calls. It is Him, the one whose eyes pierced me, the one whose voice branded me, the one who showed me that unforgiveness is a price no soul can afford. He called my name in the dark, and tonight He calls yours. Return to the fire. Return to the Gospels. Return to the words that never change, to the love that never fails, to the truth that never bends. Return before it is too late. Return before the chains harden. Return before your last breath becomes your last chance. I do not say this in arrogance. I say it in fear and trembling, in reverence, in sorrow, in love, because I have seen too much to stay silent, because I swore before Him that if I came back, I would not bury the warning, and I will not. This is not just my story. It is yours. One day you too will cross over, and when you do, only one question will matter. Did you forgive? Release now. Forgive now. The time is now. Release now. Forgive now. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. And eternity waits on your answer.